You look ahead and wait for everything to finally come together. But right now, something real is passing by. What exactly are you not noticing while you wait for the better moment? There is one shift in perception that most people never intentionally make. Not because it is difficult, but because chaos has become a familiar background, and what already exists no longer seems valuable. By the end of the video, it will become clearer where exactly attention slips into the void, and what happens when it returns to what really exists in your life right now. There is a difference between wanting something and living as though what you have is not enough by default. The latter happens unnoticed, not as a conscious choice, but as a perception habit that accumulates over the years. When a person lives in a state of expectation or lack for a long time, their attention starts to automatically scan for what is missing. This is not pessimism or weakness, it is simply what the brain adapts to if not directed otherwise. The problem is that this adaptation comes at a high cost. Sympathy goes unnoticed, trust is not built, and moments when something is about to happen are perceived as yet another calm before disappointment. At the same time, everyone has something specific: relationships to lean on, spaces to make safe, attention that can be directed where it genuinely works. Not everyone has the same thing, not everyone at the same time, but there is always something. The gap between having and noticing is what this conversation tries to bridge. Why is this important right now? Because the habit of not noticing does not disappear on its own. It strengthens every time you glance over what is present and stop only at what is absent. Then the question arises: if what you need is already partially present in your life, what prevents you from seeing it? Most people are convinced that they are simply realists. They do not complain, do not expect miracles, just soberly assess the situation. But there is one sign worth checking. When someone tells you something good about your life, your first reaction is to find out why it is not really true yet. Not consciously, not intentionally, but automatically. If this is recognizable, then it is not realism. It is a mechanism that the brain has honed over years of existence in conditions of scarcity, real or perceived. This mechanism is quite simple. Attention begins to outpace reality. It scans for what is missing, what could go wrong, what is still not enough. Initially, this is a protection. Then it becomes a background mode that does not turn off even when there is no threat. A person enters a room and notices a dirty window, not that the temperature is finally comfortable. They receive a supportive message and immediately think, they are just polite. They see that the day passed without conflicts and feel not relief, but caution, too quiet. The cost of this mode is specific: sympathy. That feeling when someone is genuinely close to you does not turn into trust because attention does not linger on it long enough. Trust is built through repeated noticing. This person is here again, did not let me down again, says what they think again. But if the gaze continuously skims past to what is missing or what could spoil, those moments simply do not accumulate. Sympathy remains a pleasant feeling that leads nowhere. It is important here to distinguish between two things that are often confused. Relying on someone and depending on someone are different positions. To rely means to expect by default, without choice, without awareness. To depend means to consciously choose a specific person you trust and allow yourself to depend on them. The first often ends in disappointment because the expectation is not stipulated. The second requires that you first notice whom you actually trust, and this is impossible if attention is occupied with searching for what is missing. The same happens with the space around. A home, a room, a workplace. They either become a place to breathe out or remain just a backdrop to fatigue. The difference is not always in how they look. The difference is whether a person notices what exactly in this space works and provides them stability, or only what is still unrepaired, uncleaned, or unfinished. The habit of scarcity turns one's own home into a to-do list, not a resource. But the most enduring consequence of this mode is how it distorts the perception of time. When it seems that nothing is happening, the brain, trained in scarcity, reads this as confirmation of stagnation. Meanwhile, much of what is later called turning points did not seem significant in real time. A decision that ripened over 3 weeks, a conversation that shifted something unnoticed, a period when everything seemed externally stagnant, but real work was happening inside. Waiting is not always emptiness, but the habit of scarcity cannot tell the difference. There is one question that helps catch this mechanism in real time. When something is going well, is my first reaction to accept it or to immediately look for where the catch is? The answer to this question reveals more accurately than any self-assessment what mode attention is operating in right now. And if the honest answer is uncomfortable, that is not a reason for self-criticism. It is simply an accurate starting point. The only question is what to do with attention when its mechanism is already visible, especially when the familiar chaos feels like the norm and calmness seems suspicious. When the mechanism is visible, you don't need to fight it. You just need to catch it at the moment of launch and make one different choice. Imagine two versions of one evening. In the first, you return home, take a glance at the apartment, and the first thing your gaze registers, an unpacked bag by the door, a dirty plate, something unfinished. Not because you're nitpicking, but simply because attention automatically goes where there is still disorder. The person who supported you during the day has become just a line in notifications. The day passed without breakdowns, and this feels not like a resource, but like a pause before the next tension. You are not unhappy, you just didn't notice anything that actually worked today. In the second version, the same evening, the same apartment, but somewhere between the door and the sofa, you ask yourself one question. What went well today that I overlooked? Not a list of achievements, not a gratitude journal. One specific moment. A person came through, the space provided a breather, something shifted without visible effort. You either name it out loud or simply fix it internally. That's enough for your attention to pause at least once a day on what is, rather than rushing on to what is not. Try it today, right this evening. One moment from the day that went well and to which you did not give weight. Don't look for something significant. Any moment will do. Someone did not escalate the conversation. Your body didn't fail you at the right moment. Something in the space around worked as it should. If you want to check if this works, ask yourself two questions in a few days. Has your first reaction to neutral events become a bit less guarded? Has there appeared at least one person whom you allowed to be closer with slightly more willingness? When something goes well next time, and your first impulse will be to find where the catch is, you will already know that this is not realism. This is just an old mode, and you will have the choice to linger for a second longer before it diverts your gaze. The gap between having and noticing is not closed through effort or discipline. It is closed through repeated choice to hold attention on what already works, even if just for a moment before it flows further down the habitual route. Not everyone has the same set of resources, but everyone has something specific. A person who once did not let them down, a space to breathe, a period of silence that is not actually empty. The question is not whether this is enough. The question is whether it receives any attention at all. The next time a day passes without obvious upheavals and the first reaction is caution, that is the moment. Not for analysis, not for self-work, just for one honest look at what is already present around. If this video has been helpful, subscribe to the channel. The next episode will be out soon.